Now, again, our distinctions between a psychotherapist and a breath worker are important. We need distinctions to live in our society. A psychotherapist has been trained to use certain tools according to a model of health and well-being. Breath worker coaches healthy breathing. Their expertise is in helping a person recognize how they're holding their breath, what are the factors emotionally and mentally which might cause them to constrict, and as we've learned about trauma now, where there are areas that are totally out of our consciousness, and that we can't simply go back and say, well, I'm going to address such and such a behavior in my life because it's been out of my awareness. My nervous system was overwhelmed. And so the advent of studying of trauma and knowing that certain things are implicit only memory, that they're out of our awareness, has been a revelation for both psychotherapy and for breathwork. Now we recognize, as we open up the sympathetic nervous system, that there are going to be behaviors that aren't understandable in the left brain, but are fully living in the right brain. And they're causing challenges for us to have a happy life, have a functional life.
And for that, we need to keep that bridge between both hemisphere, the corpus callosum, clear and open, so the information between both hemispheres really function very well. Because if it's obstructed, then there is a separation inside of our brain, isn't it? And this is where so important to do conscious connected breathing, and for especially from the nose, because it's so important to keep that place open, ready to be to. I used to have a teacher who said one of our first communication is what happened between right and left hemisphere. And we know in the world of addiction that it's not like right is good, left is bad. Oh, no, both. We have both, and both are so important for us. For example, in addiction, the one who make the game actually is the right, because the left one can say, hey, stop, after the second, after the third, come and put structure. And it's the right one who said, hey, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I want to have fun, and I know how to do it. Yeah. So the idea is how we can really kind of create this transaction between left brain and right brain in a functional way through understanding, knowledge, wisdom, but also to the conscious connected breathing. What
Absolutely. And both the psychotherapy and the tools that have been learned there can be useful, as well as can the breath itself, which takes us fully back to our origins and our source. And it's like bringing the right and the left brain together.
Indeed.
So this was the great revelation for me when breathwork came along, because I had learned bioenergetics from Alexander Lowen, who was a great believer in the breath. But he also used movement and other elements of vitality and aliveness. He was quite a vital, alive human being himself. I remember getting on an elevator once. I went to study with him, and he just walked on the elevator and it kind of lit up. And he didn't know me from Adam at the time, but he shook my hands and his eyes were bright and he was right there. And wow, he was modeling aliveness. He was modeling presence.
Exactly.
And I say, well, I'm in the right place. This is where I love to be. And so anything that brings that aliveness together, and I say to people in doing breath work, it's also intuition training. It's not mechanical. It's not just you learn to start with your diaphragm and then innervate your costal muscles and then relax on the exhale. Yeah, those are the externals of it. But there's another element to it which is the je ne sais quoi, that vitality of aliveness there, that
Yeah.
is your spirit that you're bringing into it. It's good to have the tools of the mechanical because you can look, oh, yes, I'm going to see my person that I've got some emotional troubles with, and I can feel my throat starting to constrict and my belly can. No, it's good to have those tools of awareness that, okay, I can be a little more resourceful. I remember we had a loving relationship and then something happened, so I can go back to that. That's putting resourcefulness back into my system, which will help me reconnect with my friend who I have a problem with, or even with a marital partner that I may be estranged from,
Or the
or with
parent that we have so much
parents.
difficulty with as our first parent or carer, as our first authority, huh? And how
Exactly.
I can see it very clearly in when I'm doing business consultancy, how we take our problem with authority, started with the parent and the carer and the school, and all these issues that we didn't heal with authority, how we take it to our work, how we take sibling rivalry to our work and to our life and to our in-laws family. Like, is we repeat story and repeat it until we really get awareness of it. For that I said, hey, you're just one breath away from the best.
Right, right.
One
Yes.
breath at a time. We are one breath away of that. Just breathe it in. Let's do it and let's see it from another perspective and see what belongs to the past and what is it in the present. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have a wonderful image for that, Iola, which came up as you were talking there. It's like I say, we all bring our family dynamics, those original judgments that we made about our helplessness, our abundance, our okayness with our sexuality, all of those little conclusions that become lifelong patterns are in our little coaster wagon, our little wagon that we drag along and take to work with us, or we take to church, or we take to wherever we go. And then we bring those dynamics out there and recreate our family
Yeah.
right there. Well, everyone else is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So whose family is better? So yeah.
I always remember with my free spirit, is like I was used to be like this person was doing so many things to get my freedom. And if my family was living in the West and I went far east, what, as far away from from my family was, and find an apartment. And the apartment was like a small apartment part of a house that has little garden, and it was perfect. Guess what? It was 70s or early 80s, and we share the telephone line. And what was my surprise when the owner of my apartment tell me, you can't receive call after 10 p.m. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? You go and live alone and you get away from, you're free. And it was very interesting because by then I already was in transactional analysis and learning and doing groups. I was 23, 24 years old. But I took that to my group, look, I brought this with me. Like, I pay a rent, I went far away, and they are telling me I can't have call after 10 because it will sound in the whole house, and my landlord, who were elderly people, it will be disturbed. But it was so interesting how it come out. Or you cannot light an incense, or you cannot, it's all what you can't, because of course I took it with me wherever I go. And
Well,
that was
exactly,
so
exactly. We take our judgments and our reactions and
yes,
those early patterns wherever we go.
yeah,
Now, you could say like, oh, that's horrible. No, it's actually life is telling us you've got a judgment here about authority and freedom, and it's going to show up wherever you go, not because you're helplessly neurotic or because you're sick. It's because life is wanting to help you heal that.
yeah, apart from the neurosis. Yeah. Anyway, Chris, Chris. Anyway, Jim, it's so nice to be. Neurosis is another subject. Shall we talk even 5 minutes about it? What What does it mean? What is it? A neurotic behavior. What does it mean?
Well, to me, it's a repetition of a judgment that has somewhat taken over our life. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because even in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, they categorize mental illnesses according psychosis is something that has so taken over a person's life that they cannot function in normal reality. A neurosis is something that has taken over a person's nervous system so that they're still functional. They can still go to work, but there's something that is blocking their full sense of fulfillment and happiness. A personality disorder is a quirk that has somewhat infected, you might say, the person's character and how they behave, which doesn't, which makes them difficult to live with, or make, but they still can be quite successful. And an adjustment reaction is a, is a stance that a person has taken because of something that has happened in their life, and they're adjusting to it. They lost a partner, they got fired from a job, and the natural coping mechanisms of being sad or wanting to be isolated are coming into play. But it's because something we can identify that was happened at a certain point in their life, and with help and support, they'll get over that. So there's all these different categories of how severe a person's functioning is treated them. Now, neurosis can be very deceptive, because it's like, well, the person still can go to work, they can still make a living, but boy, they're struggling. They're not happy with it. Their nervous system has taken on certain defense patterns that are very present in their life. And of course, there's varying degrees of that. Some people who might be obsessive compulsive and who can't even leave the house because of the fear of germs. Or fear. Whereas another person might have that fairly under control, and they prefer not to handshake with you, but they're very friendly, and they say they've compartmentalized it. They're
Will
able
you
to use that, put that fear in a category, and have coping mechanisms, but still function. Now, with breath work, we can breathe into these things and re-own the energy. See, I don't try to get rid of symptoms. I don't say, well, you've got this bad behavior, let's get rid of all of the thoughts and feelings around it. No, those thoughts and feelings were held because the nervous system got to a point where I didn't see an escape. It went from fight or flight into freeze. I didn't see an escape from this. So we're not trying to get rid of that energy. We're trying to re-own it. We're trying to take the locks off the door. We're trying to open it up if you have the concept of getting rid of a symptom, it's like, well, I'm just going to get it out of my life and compartmentalize it as much as possible, and then go on functioning. Yes, I'm a normal person, but of course I'm such and such, depressed or an alcoholic,
Yes.
and we're going to keep it over there because I can handle things life just fine as long as I don't recognize I'm really that is in the cellar.
Yes, and then we understand all the violence toward the self and toward others, because will you agree with me that where is a neurotic, there is a co-neurotic or many co-neurotics around? And maybe we don't have directly the awareness of somebody who's dealing with neurosis, but we have in session a lot of people who are dealing with the co-neurotic, because co-neurosis, because they dealt with it for in different way, and it come a time that the person said, oh, maybe it's not me, it's him, or maybe it's not me, it's her, or maybe. So people come to work and to see how they can really how they can adjust their reality in the present moment and go out of these, whatever is emotional violence or mental violence or physical violence or whatever violence the person who's dealing with co-neurosis goes. So whoever from the family group or from the couple who has the awareness first, don't wait until the one that you think suffering from this or that to come to session. Whoever get the awareness first, please ask for help, because you can impact your relationship, you can impact your family, and you can breathe in energy into your family, because you had the awareness and you say it's not a taboo anymore. Mental health is not taboo. Let's go and work on it. And in this combination of psychotherapy and breath work is such a marvelous thing of working really in all the dimension of a human being. And what I want to tell you today is that mental health, fitness, clarity, to be fit, to be agile with your mental health is your right, is your human right to ask for help, is your human right to be able to change some behavior that you copy from carer or from parent, and is human right to say, no, I don't want this anymore. And we are, all of us, in different part of the world. You can find breath worker everywhere. And that's going to be my last question for today for Jim, about not only that we are in the IBF, and please go to the website and you will see according to your area. And nowadays we do it online. So even you don't have to find us in your area. We are all at your services, that we work in different languages and we have different methodology. And on top of that, or parallel to that, my dear Jim and our colleague Jessica created in 2001. When was created the
Yes,
GPBA,
2001 was the inauguration.
Global Professional Breathwork Alliance? Since 2001, dear friend has been working to create this infrastructure, this platform for us all to be able to have the guidelines for what is it to be a professional breath worker. What is it a professional training? Why and how? Do you want to tell us something about the GPBA to finalize our conversation today, Jim?
Absolutely, absolutely. As we began to see, those of us who worked with breathwork for a number of years, because by 2001, breathwork had been around since the 70s in various forms, and we saw the power of the tool. We saw how amazingly effective it could be. But we also, as with any tool, it can be misused. It can be used not necessarily for evil purposes, but I imagine for that too, but mostly through misunderstanding and through a person's lack of training. They are using the tool in a way that doesn't optimize the health of another, or even makes their situation worse. So we recognize that we had a responsibility as elders at that time to say, wait a minute, we've been down this road of using breath work and breath work applies to every kind of profession. It's not just mental health workers. Breath work is, and breath awareness and breath modulation can be used by dentists. But we saw, no, there's a certain wisdom to have training and to learn from others, and also to understand ethics. And we learn this from other professions. If we are going to truly be a profession in the world, we make an agreement with the public. And that's what a profession is. A profession is an agreement amongst a group of practitioners with the general public. And that group of practitioners says, we agree on standards for training. If it's a medical profession, we agree that a person has to have an anatomy course. We agree that if it's a legal profession, we agree that a person has to study the judicial system. And so as breath workers, we agree to a set of standards and training that someone who is going to be a professional and advertise themselves as such have this kind of training, and is also aware and trained in ethical use of this tool. And further than that, that as a profession, we will monitor this so that if someone says that they have this training, but they don't, no, they can't call themselves certified by the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. If someone says that they're practicing ethically, but they are not, and we've gone through a process of restorative justice. We don't have a punitive system. We have restorative justice, and it's unresolvable, and that person is unwilling to operate within an ethical realm. No, you cannot advertise yourself as certified by the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. So we have said we are establishing ourselves as a profession on the face of the earth. It doesn't mean that no one can do breath work unless they belong to this organization. Anyone can do breath work. It's just like anyone can practice medicine, but they can't be listed as a doctor according to the medical association.
Indeed. So, and the beautiful thing about this humanistic platform, holistic, I would call, is that because in your country maybe you had this type of training or this other type of training, that when you come to the alliance, we understand that it's not complete. We will offer you different way that you complete it. It's not about yes or not. It's about the various opportunity that you can, as I did in myself as a psychotherapist. I'm a psychotherapist who doesn't have the degree of psychology. For that, I'm somebody who studied all the time because I'm coming from alternative and non-formal education. So that gives me the awareness that it's very important for me to always be backed up with my study, with my word, with why we keep studying to be up to our client. It's not only to have that title or to belong to that institution, is to be able to be trained and updated so we always can give the best service to our clients. So those of us who had less hours training, or we didn't have the opportunity, or like many of us, we did it in a language even that we couldn't understand back then. I still remember once I'm with Leonard and I'm telling him, he come to Venezuela and I tell him, Leonard, you do this like me, like I do. I discovered it in a session, and he kindly, and as a kind, nurturing parent will do, he said, yes, you saw it in my training. I said, no, I discovered it in that day. He said, then we understood later that I learned so many things when my English was not totally formed technically, and it was stored in my system and slowly was developed later. So like people like me, we did many more training in my own languages later. Yeah. So it's very important. It's not about just to finish a training and start working. This is, and as a mentor, I always remember that mentors, we are there to the service of our mentees, how we can make it possible for them. And that is not something that I learn and is done. It's something that you practice and you learn in your own time and in your own, in the area where you like the most. For that, we don't specialize in everything. We specialize in the area that we like the most, in the area that our grace and our truths come easily. And that's the idea of this organization, as I understand it. And I'm so pleased to be part of it now, too. Always loved it,
We're
but
so
now I'm
pleased to have
actively
you,
part of it.
Viola.
Huh?
You're a true ambassador of breath in many languages, in many cultures, and and for both male and female.
Yes, I am. Of course. What has been such a miracle in my life, we just spread it around. And in this time of more and more consciousness about mental health fitness, this is the idea of being talking with my colleague here and dear teacher. So, Jim, I want to say for today, thank you so much for being with me here. And what will be your last for this time, your inspiring message to all these the people that are watching us and listening to us today?
Well, to follow that inner voice, if you have, for example, a sense of hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more about this. Oh, I'm very busy. No, no, listen, go into that inner space and trust your own intuition and listen to where you're called in your life. That's, as Joseph Campbell said, is where your bliss is. Follow your bliss. And breath is just a tool that helps open the door to finding that bliss and that fulfillment and living your purpose. And if it
Yes.
leads you to breath work, Viola and I are here with open arms to
And
support you.
and and before I forget, and Jim with my dear friend Omar Shitwi, they are doing a program on training in Arabic. Yalla, yalla, but those of you who want to do it in Arabic with translation or in English, they are going all over the world. And with Omar, they are doing it in Arabic. Yalla, matan true. Go for it. So I should remember this. So I'm so pleased. I'm waiting my time to come and join forces also with them because I'm looking forward to also work in Arabic. I need a little bit of more courage for that. So but and also if you're willing to do the training or any of the thing that dear Jim has done, and many of his beautiful teaching is already recorded, is online. So please follow Jim, follow us in IBF, and be blessed. Viola Edward here, most happy of being with you today in this conversation with my dear Jim Morningstar. Bye bye for now.
That's you.
And you.